And I know when John was president of the Senate, he did not like naming any type of highway, road, bridge after anyone who was alive. So after he termed out, I'm glad he termed out. Bob Toomey, it was Bob Toomey, my chief of staff at the time, said, hey, we need to really name the freeway in front of John's house after John. And I said, great. And it caused a whole lot of commotion because the Senate didn't want to do it because of their standing rule. But then they decided to suspend the rules to allow us to name this freeway after the great Senator John Burton. So we are here today. He has been my mentor and my boss. And for me, he has really been the current modern day St. Francis de Assisi. The wonderful John Burton. I'm so happy we are all here today. So without further ado, we have fabulous speaker, Nancy Pelosi, our Nancy. The two of them are like partners in crime. Nothing happens at the state or the federal level when it comes to San Francisco, the Bay Area, or California without our Nancy and John. So Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Fiona, and thank you for bringing us all together. It was interesting to hear your history because it was one that was probably shared by many people here as John oriented them to his greatness in terms of values and what, as John would say, getting the J-O-B done, getting the job done. When Fiona sent out the word, when anyone sends out the word puts out the word that John is going to be honored, when that word is put out, the crowd turns out for John Burton. So many of us were together in Sacramento when the California State Party building, unbeknownst to John, as a complete and total surprise to him, was named for him. And here we are today. That was a political home for him. Here we are today, right close to where he grew up. He used to say to us during campaigns, the campaign hasn't begun until the sign is up on Millie's house. So when the sign's up, the campaign begins. Christine always reminds me of that. Anytime there's a campaign, you know what John would say. I hope it is a source of great pride to his grandchildren that so many people hold John in such high esteem. He is brilliant, we know that. He is tactical and strategic both. We know that. He is, from time to time, humorous, intentional or not. He is always right on point. Wittingly or unwittingly, he drives it right home. I just want to say that a few weeks ago, there was a reunion of the Watergate babies in Washington, D.C. 40 years ago, they were sworn into Congress as this whole new generation of leaders. They came in, swept the chairmanship of shall we say, people who did not agree with their generation or their orientation or their view on the war in Vietnam. And the big star of the show, of course, was John Burton. Everyone was thrilled that he turned out. Everyone had a John Burton story. And the reason we all do is because John Burton is about truth. So here's former Speaker Hirschberg here who served with John. I know that Fiona said it was a challenge to get a naming done, but it was interesting that it was unanimous, that 38-0 in the state Senate. No surprise there. But this is a very special person. His values run deep. His knowledge is so broad. His judgments are spontaneous. And when you say, Mr. Mayor, that sometimes he wonders why we hadn't come to that conclusion ourselves, why do you ask? And he quotes sometimes Phil when he says, you'll understand when you understand. That sounds like him. So it's a joy to be here with the mayor, with Fiona, with our all of the elected officials who are here. I'm particularly proud to be here with Jackie Speier because we are one block into her district. And so we all want to claim some part of John Burton. It's remarkable that a highway is named for him. I thought we were coming out for a street naming, but this is a highway. And that's a highway important because John always took the high road. A highway is important because he always showed us the path forward. A highway, a street, a road, he always showed us the path forward with great clarity. So it's actually a very personal privilege for me. It's a family affair. My daughter Christine is here. Paul is coming. Paul Jr. is coming. They may already be here. I haven't seen them. But they all send their love, as does this act of love for John Burton speak for the people of not only this district, not only our city, not only the state of California, but for his many friends on the national level. And what a busy intersection it is. And so many people will come by here and say, aha, John Burton, I knew him, I knew of him, and for generations to come, it will be a name that instantaneously brings to people's mind greatness, brilliance, and getting the job done. Congratulations, John Burton. Where is it?
Thank you. And the sign is right over across the street with the bow, and there will be another sign all the way down on 39th Avenue right before the zoo. So everyone who's going to the zoo will also be reminded how great John Burton is. Our next speaker is Congresswoman Jackie Speier. We are in her district. She was on the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors and also served in the Assembly and in the Senate with John Burton. So, Jackie Speier.
Thank you, Fiona, and thank you for your vision and that of your staff to recognize the importance of leaving an indelible mark on our great city that reflects John Burton. So, as you see, from 19th to 39th is the new John Burton Highway. This is a leafy, green, spiritual place known as Stern Grove. It ends, as Fiona said, at the zoo. And if you think about John's life, it's apropos. He had a lot of leafy stuff in his past, smoked a lot of it, and having witnessed his leadership in both the Assembly and the Senate, I can tell you from time to time it was a zoo. I see his good friend Mike Roos is here, and Craig Lucas, and the former Speaker, and even the other side of the aisle, Mr. Duplessis. Kevin Shelley is, I mean, this is really the family of San Francisco who is here today to celebrate a true legend. As our leader just said, he is a legend, and God love him, he's a legend in our time. And we have the great opportunity to recognize him today. I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about what he did in Sacramento. He was a bulldozer. He absolutely could move anything through the process. And one of the examples that really sticks in my mind is when the pedophilia took front stage in so many communities around the country. His passion about giving those victims an opportunity to have their day in court was felt by everyone. And he did really the impossible by creating out of whole cloth a new statute of limitation that would extend for a period of, I think, a year or 2 years. I mean, if it had been challenged in the courts, it probably would have been held unconstitutional. But John did it, and people who had been victimized got relief. So whether it was trying to make sure that we got a particular benefit from the high-speed rail monies, or whether it was making sure that the poor were not forgotten, John Burton was always the conscience of the state Senate. And we had great times together. We had some tough times together during the energy crisis. And when we had governor leadership that wasn't quite as, shall we say, amenable to John's way of doing business, we were challenged from time to time. But John, this is indeed fitting. You are a hero, I think, to all of us who recognize that you've got to do the right thing, even when it's the wrong time. So your leadership will be remembered now through this freeway, but particularly because we're at this leafy location and we've got the zoo at the other end. Congratulations.
So I wouldn't be here without John Burton, and I know another woman has also benefited from the mentorship and love of John Burton, our State Controller Betty Yee.
Thank you, Fiona. Good morning, everyone. I can't tell you how special it is to be back in the old neighborhood. And I'm really thrilled that there are so many native San Franciscans right from this area joining us to honor our great Senator John Burton. So I just wanted to say a couple things because this is such a fitting tribute, and especially having grown up in the same neighborhood. And most of you know my personal story where my family had their laundry and dry cleaning business right on Terraville between 24th and 25th Avenue. And it was a time when just the whole value of community was so treasured, and the fact that they were able to just put 6 kids through college is like amazing to me. But a lot of that just has to do with the values of the time, and I just really attribute that to the leadership of John Burton, his brother Phil, and that this was about community, and that if anybody was hurting in a community, it meant that it was sustained on the entire community. And I hope that as we cherish this moment of honoring John, as we drive along this highway and see the signs in the future, that we'll just reflect that as much as we are seeing this great city evolve with its great diversity, and I know the mayor is providing great leadership in the city as well, but that we all just reflect and just think about not forgetting the less fortunate among us. And that's what John's always been about. That's what his leadership has been marked by. It's what we frankly miss in Sacramento today. But I know that as we go forward from this day today, I hope that we can each recommit ourselves to the value of community and what that means within each of our communities as we define it. So to John, thank you very much for just, one, accepting this honor, and two, for letting us just celebrate you and what you've meant to so many of us, not just in your elected family, but to this great city of San Francisco. Congratulations, John.
So as anyone knows, Highway 1, Highway 35, they're all state highways, and trying to deal with the state and the highways is not always easy. I've had my battles with them, as Bill probably knows. But we are fortunate that we have a former John Burton staffer, someone who worked for John Burton in the Senate, who now is the Secretary of Transportation, Brian Kelly, who really helped make this happen here today. Brian.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I should say thank you or apologize, but no, I'm very honored to be here today, and I should say before I took the appointment from Governor Brown in March of 2012 to work in the executive branch, I spent a great 17 years working in the state Senate in Sacramento, and 6 of those years were working for John when he was the pro tem of the state Senate. And most people think that when you become a veteran legislative staffer over time, you're supposed to get very cynical and hard and bitter about politics, and I always found it to be quite the opposite. I found that the more I stuck around, the more good you wanted to do. And the one thing that all legislative staffers want is they want to work for somebody who they're so proud of and who they respect so much. And I can tell you, John, that without an exception, every person that I worked with when we worked for you, we're proud to work for you then, proud to work for you now, and we'll always be proud to say that we work for John Burton. So I just want to say, John, congratulations. This is so well deserved.
And we're also happy that his daughter, Kimiko Burton, and his John Burton's grandkids are here today. They just literally got off a plane yesterday, so they're probably a little bit jet lagged, but we wanted to make sure that they were here for this presentation. So, Kimiko.
This is just what my dad loves, kind of like an open mic. So we're going to let everybody hear. So I haven't worked for him, but I'm here as the family representative, and as we were driving down here this morning, I was shocked that we could see the ocean. So, I mean, it really is a remarkable day. I've made the drive down Sloat Boulevard more times than I can count, and maybe 6 times have I been able to see the ocean as we come down. And as Nancy said, the whole time I was growing up, there were Burton signs in my grandmother's window. And after a certain point, it didn't even need to be campaign season. She had them up 365 days a year because that's who she was. And so my dad doesn't care to have things named after him. We don't get elected to go to X. We get elected to do stuff. But I am proud of everything that he has done, and I am so glad that my kids are here and that they will have the legacy of everything that my dad has done. And it's so nice to see all of these people here. And I got to tell you, my dad is a Sunset guy, but I am an East Side girl, and it is cold out here. And every day when I left my house to go to school, I went to Lowell, I would leave my house in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts, and I'd come home and be cold, and they'd say, "It's cold out there. How do you not know that?" And today, I'm cold. How do I not know that? Anyway, thank you all for being here. The John Burton Highway is a great thing and a tremendous honor, not just for my dad, but for myself and for my children. Thanks for coming.
And the other gentleman who made this day happen. Without him, we wouldn't be able to be here, standing here. Brian Kelly runs the state highways, and Mayor Ed Lee runs everything else in the city. Our great mayor, Mayor Ed Lee.
Thank you, Fiona. Well, actually, it's Muhammad Nuru and Ed Riskin. They do a lot of the work as well. Well, listen, it is just my personal pleasure to join all of you, Leader Pelosi, Jackie, Betty, Fiona, of course, Brian, the Burton family, and all of your friends here to have this special occasion of people who have not only their lives have been touched, but also can testify that John is a personality never to be forgotten, but also one that I think all of us celebrate for so many reasons. I see present members of our Board of Supervisors that are here, thank you. Our fire chief and department heads that have been touched with his good work. I also see past members of our Board of Supervisors and community leaders who for years have had the privilege of his leadership, but also his counsel. And I, for one, I wanted to say most strongly that I don't think I would have ever gotten here without that special counseling, John, that occasionally you quietly disperse to those you love the most. I have to remember that. But, beyond the, the very colorful language that is often associated with his speeches, I do believe that I've sought out for many years the counsel of people who've had the experience of touching a lot of other people's hearts and minds, and made sure that those of us in public office never abuse that privilege, that very, very special privilege of representing the people who don't have representation. This is what Johnny Burton and the entire Burton family, for all I know, represent, is that touch, that touch that is very special to San Francisco, and is one that I seek out because, kind of like this intersection, there are many distractions. There are many things that will throw you off, turn your head, keep you unfocused. But I know through the counsel that John has offered to me and to so many others here, he's kept us focused on the right things. And so when people come down this highway, knowing that they'll see drought-tolerant, vegetation, cleanliness all the way, but they'll also see a sign that keeps them focused on the right things for this city and for the people in it. That's what John has meant to me. And whether it's affordable housing, whether it's affordable transportation, whether it's just holding yourself accountable to people that don't have a voice, and most recently, more and more, whether it's paying attention to all of the youth that don't have that voice but want to grow up in this city with some dignity, we all pay attention to that and get very focused. This is what John has represented, not only in his life, in his work, and well beyond the rhetoric that has to be espoused at the federal, the state, and the local level. He has personally been an example to all of us. And so when we come down this highway, whether we walk, ride a bike, in our cars, or on the public transportation, we should spend that very moment not being distracted, but see the sign of John Burton Highway and be appropriately focused on the things that we should do for others. This is what John means to me, and it's on behalf of all of you, friends and acquaintances, staffers, and others who continue to really support his work and his vision, I present to you John Burton Highway, the City and County of San Francisco. Yeah, how about a group?
Now they'll always see a Burton sign in the neighborhood.
Guys, stay right there. Stay right here. Eyes here, guys. Eyes here, eyes here. On three. 1, 2, and move. Right, eyes right here. Beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful, guys.
Anyway, first I want to thank all of you. Thank Fiona. I thought actually that this was one of her dumber ideas because it's kind of embarrassing, but I'm proud of it. I want to thank Mayor Lee, who I still call Eddie. I want to thank Nancy and Jackie. Now to touch your balls time. I know Betty Yee, who's missing. Brian Kelly worked for me. A lot of missing, but elected official. I do want to introduce also one former staff person who's floating around here, Linda Yip. Where's Linda? Linda put up with me for like 18 years in Sacramento, and if you think that's easy, and of course, my colleague, former Speaker, now Senator Bobby Hertzberg, who came up here, and my Army buddy, how about that one, Jerry Heckert. We served together in peacetime. But anyway, this is, I'm really very touched by this. That corner, when I was a kid, from the 7th grade all the way through high school, I would hitchhike from here down to Quintero to get off to go to Lincoln. Bob St. Clair, the Hall of Fame tackle from Poly High, Saint would be hitchhiking with me as he was going down to Poly, and but he's got a Hall of Fame jacket, and I've got this, so I think I came out the best. But I'm probably the only, well, no, I think somebody was here. Vicki Hennessy claims she remembers when that was a nursery over here, the hall there, and the church, the Lutheran church, used to have their mass at the Empire Theater before it was built. And I can remember we lived on a block with 4 people, 4 houses. There was Arnold Spinetti, a milkman, who actually went from milk on a horse-drawn cart to being the president of Marindel. And Spin had a grass that was like a putting green. And he used to get up early being a milkman, and he'd catch me coming home sometime at 5:30 in the morning, and I'd say, Jesus Christ, don't tell my mother, because I'd be out, work nights, so I'd be out late having the fun. Then there was our house, then there was the Boudroses, who had a Greek creamery down the end of this. Then there's a guy at the end of the street, never knew his name. And he had a sign in front of his house, and it was DC, which Doctor of Chiropractic. My father was a medical doctor, so needless to tell you what he thought about chiropractors. And the neighbor Spinetti said, oh, Doc, you ought to go down the street and meet, Doc, whatever the hell his name was. And my father saw the sign, DC, and my father could grit his teeth, and I don't think they ever did shake hands. But it was at that moment that I realized there was a difference between MDs and DCs. But it was a great thing growing up in this neighborhood. There was, when my folks would go out of town, there was many, many parties at 8 Sloat Boulevard. I mean, and I was the guy who had a phony ID so I could buy all the beer. And there was a liquor store up at about 16th and Tarryville that sold Golden Glow beer, and you get 2 quarts for 37 cents. I'd collect 50 cents from everybody for the beer so I could pocket about $4 and get a heat on myself. So all in all, it worked. It worked good. But again, it's too goddamn cold to keep this up. But I want to thank everybody really for coming. It's a nice thing. And Eddie Lee and I go back God knows how many years. 40. I mean, how long was it then? When we met and you were doing your deal, the poverty lawyer stuff. Long time, fighting for the right type of thing. Betty, met her when she was a staffer in Sacramento. Jackie, met her when she worked for the late great member of Congress Leo Ryan, and Nancy, of course, Pelosi. Met her at an event for George McGovern over on Union Street, shook her hand and kind of walked by. She thought it was because I thought I was hot stuff. I thought it was because the Burtons were on the other side of her brother-in-law, Ron Pelosi, in the local fights. And then Nancy Larson, who worked for my brother Philip for so many years. And of course, the great daughter of the great Estes Kefauver, Nancy Kefauver, worked for Nancy. So again, thank all of you very much. I really appreciate it. And of course, Ed Reskin will be talking about the circle, the bottom of Potrero Hill. But again, I want to just thank all of you guys very much.
Okay, we are going to do the sign unveiling, and then I will make a couple of closing remarks after, so please stick around. Drum roll. Go. Da, da, da.
Take that, Willie Brown.
And I did invite Willie Brown. I think he's out of town. I called him. I talked the song, so.